Happy New Year, folks. Jack, Aram, Just Baseball Show, the first episode of 2023. Today is Monday, January 2nd, and we figured we got to start off 2023 with a bang. So that is why we are talking about the Kansas City Royals today, right?
Yep. I thought there was no more exciting way to get this thing going this year. Also, we're going to talk about Evan Longoria on a 1 year to the Diamondbacks, right? We're pulling out all the stops to kick this year off, baby. Also, KBO's Kiwoom Heroes to post Jung Hoo after the 2023 season. So, we wanted to save our best bullets, and they're all ready to go here on January 2nd.
Well, you haven't even mentioned the best bullet of all bullets, and that's that the Cubs are in talks with Eric Hosmer to possibly play first base.
Hate it.
Hate with a burning passion. I was looking for something to generate this visceral reaction to open the new year, and I think that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Hosmer to Chicago makes 0 sense, ladies and gents, and I know that he's a friend of Just Baseball. He's a friend of the Call Up podcast, but you cannot look at what Matt Mervis did in minor league baseball, look at what Eric Hosmer has done since he signed that Padres contract, and tell me that Hosmer is a better option to be the opening day first baseman for the Cubs in 2023 than Matt Mervis.
Well, that's the thing. So, I think if they're signing a Hosmer, is he at the point now where it's kind of accepted that he is not getting everyday at-bats? Like, if that is the case, then I can justify it. If he is taking away at-bats from Matt Mervis, it's an absolute boneheaded move, because here's the number one thing. And aside from the fact that I think you give them both a full season, I think Mervis blows Hosmer's numbers out of the water, even if Mervis struggles a little bit.
Yeah.
My big thing is, why take the ABs away? Cubs most likely not contending next year. I think they take a big step next year, not contending. Get Mervis 600 plate appearances so that in 2024 he's ready to go and hopefully be part of the middle of that order and help push that team across the finish line. So if Hosmer is an insurance policy, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe Hosmer's career is at that point, Jack, where it's like he knows that he's probably a bench guy and he's accepting that he's a bench guy. And if that's the case, then do you hate it as much? Maybe not as much. And he is a vet and by all accounts, a great clubhouse dude. I'm just playing a little bit of the devil's advocate here. If he eats into any of Mervis's at-bats, I'm out, just so you know. But yes.
Correct. So my other line of thinking was, okay, like who else is in the Hosmer ballpark that the Cubs are looking at right now? And according to Bruce Levine with 670 The Score, he mentioned Trey Mancini and he mentioned Dominic Smith. And I'm thinking, okay, well, like if Hosmer was in a conversation with legitimate starting first baseman or at least platoon first baseman, then that's a terrible acquisition. But because you're mentioning Hosmer in the same breath as Mancini, who maybe cost himself everyday reps with that 3 month or 2 month stretch with Houston, right? Like we talked about that. I mean, he kind of screwed himself in Houston. Yeah. So Hosmer, Mancini, Dom Smith, those are not everyday first basemen. I don't even know if those guys are platoon first basemen right now. Like Dom Smith was borderline Syracuse Met at the end of his Mets tenure. So no, I think we're talking about these guys as backups.
Totally. And Dom Smith's a reverse splits guy, so it could kind of work as like, if Mervis is struggling against lefties. But again, I want to get him ABs against lefties. Mancini's the one I like because, look, would you be shocked if Mancini came out next year and had, especially in Chicago, where we know the ball can carry a bit more compared to where he was in Baltimore, if he came out and hit, 25 homers and, put up a 115 WRC plus, would you be surprised at all next year? Like that's the one guy that I think, if you sign Hosmer, you're praying for league average offense and that's it. If you sign Mancini, you're expecting league average offense, but you're hoping for more. And I think it's fair to hope for that, right? Like it's a reasonable hope. And that's why I want to sign somebody with more upside, like a Mancini. So hopefully the Cubs do that. He would complement Mervis well. Also, if Mervis is raking, then you can put Mancini in the corner outfield where he's passable. You can put him at the DH spot. It makes a little bit more sense there. And of course, a right-hander to complement the left-hander. That would be way more preferred for me. And again, I still think Mancini can be a really solid hitter. I think he's the one that's different from the other two. One's not alike the other. Like he stands out from the group.
Yes, and the beauty of Cubs baseball, the beauty of playing half your games at Wrigley Field is you can have, by all accounts, a a bad or average year and still put up gaudy home run numbers. Like Kyle Schwarber, 2017, hit 211, had a 103 WRC plus, had a 1.2 F4, and had a 30 homer season. Like, that's the beauty of Cubs baseball. So
how about like Schwindel, or which one? Wisdom was it that hit all the home runs? Wisdom hit all the home runs.
Yeah, I'll pull up Wisdom's like weirdest season to this point. It's probably 2021, right?
Yeah. The other big
Wisdom,
thing, 3 teams are interested in Yu Chang.
3 teams?
Yeah, I'm shocked that there's 3 teams that want Yu Chang.
As a bench bat?
I don't know. I was just shocked to see that 3 teams want Yu Chang.
There you go. Like Patrick Wisdom this past season, right? 134 games. He hit 207 with a 104 WRC plus, an F4 at 1.1, and he had a 25 homer season.
Yeah.
That could absolutely be Trey Mancini.
I think Mancini could be better than that.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's the guy they should sign.
There we go. All right, Longoria. I saw Will Carroll, who does great injury stuff. I think his Twitter is literally @injuryexpert Will Carroll. And he said, yeah, @injuryexpert. He's great to follow with all that stuff. But he said, I'm not that privy to the Diamondback system, but is Evan Longoria a bridge to somebody? And I think the resounding answer was no. Like Evan Longoria, this deal might make a teensy bit of sense this year. I guess that's just a veteran presence in a very, very young lineup, which is beneficial because you've got now Moreno added to the fold, and you've got the first full season of Corbin Carroll and the first full season of Alek Thomas, we hope. And it's an exciting team, and I think they got a little bit more boring, but a little bit more veteran with that signing.
Well, and I think when we were looking at like what that team's going to look like, that would have been a lot of ABs to Rojas, who's going to be moving around to. Like they definitely just needed a little bit more of just like an anchor. And let's be honest. I mean, this guy's been pretty good offensively the last 2 years. It's been a matter of health, which is a big question. I think it's come to the point now with Longoria that probably not an everyday player, right? Probably a guy that you're going to play 3-4 times a week, try to manage his health, but he still slugs, right? In San Francisco, not the easiest place to slug. 451 slugging percentage last year, 482 the year before that. He's only played 81 and 89 games respectively, but if you combine those two, which is almost a little bit more than a full season, right? 27 home runs. He's got like a 330, 340 on base and nearly a 120 WRC plus across that span, a 3.0 F4 if you combine the 2 half seasons that he's just played. I know there's a little bit more to it than that, but I mean, if he gives you this kind of production, your team got better. And I think for the Diamondbacks, it's almost a level of, I think we know they're not going to be a playoff team, right? But if they're playing meaningful baseball down the stretch, that's really good experience for Gabriel Moreno. It's really good experience for Corbin Carroll, for Alek Thomas, for all these guys to just be playing some meaningful baseball down the stretch against some of the best teams in baseball in their division. I think they're trying to be good next year, right? And they're focused on being decent next year. And look, if he's putting up above average offensive numbers, there's going to be plenty of teams that are willing to part with, like a back end top 30 prospect for him, at the deadline. So might as well cash in on a prospect or two there too. So I like it. I think they needed some vet leadership. Longoria, by all accounts, is exactly that. And it's not like he's totally cooked. Like this guy still, when he's on the field, is hitting. I just hope he can stay on the field.
Yes. Working around the Diamondbacks lineup real quick, because you got Moreno catching, like roster resource on Fangraphs, and what we think the opening day lineup is going to be, I think is a little bit different here. They've got Moreno on the bench. Moreno will not be on the bench.
No shot.
It's going to be Moreno catching, Carson Kelly DHing, Christian Walker at first, Ketel Marte at second, Nick Ahmed at short likely, and then you've got Longoria at third or Josh Rojas. Then the outfield left to right is Lourdes Gurriel, Corbin Carroll, and Jake McCarthy. And you've got Alek Thomas, Kyle Lewis, Geraldo Perdomo, who cannot really hit, but a great defensive shortstop waiting in the wings of Nick Ahmed, who we know is a great defensive shortstop. This team is going to be fun to watch. They're going to be a 500 team, but they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, what's interesting is, I think Longo could end up being that DH for them in a big way.
Instead of Kelly, like Carson Kelly is going to get at bats.
Yeah, I think he will. But that's the cool thing is you can kind of ride the hot hand, right? And I think we've seen teams really like to rotate that DH role unless you've got, an absolute stud. Nobody wants someone clogging up that DH role. So, now you can rotate it and use it as a way to give guys rest. Like Rojas needs a day off at third. Okay, Longo, he plays third. Rojas DHs that day. Gurriel needs a day off in the outfield. Like you can shuffle around, throw someone in the outfield, and then put him in the DH role. Same with Kelly. If he's swinging it well, but you want to get Moreno to start behind the dish because he works well with a pitcher, now you can put Kelly in that DH role. So it just allows so much more flexibility for a manager, and I think we're going to see a lot more teams as we move forward here use that DH role as like a fluid position instead of I'm going to try to sign an absolute masher who's just going to play DH, pencil him in every single day. I think it's become pretty clear that unless that guy's putting up a 900 OPS, it's a disadvantage to do so.
Yes, 100%. Another thing with the Diamondbacks before we get into the Royals and this being their GM episode, where I think we're like wasting as much time as possible before we actually talk about the Royals. They have a surplus. Arizona has a surplus. And like you look at the outfield, one of Alec Thomas, Kyle Lewis, Jake McCarthy is a surplus. Pavin Smith is surplus. Dominic Fletcher, Dominic Canzone, they are both surplus. And then you look at a Seth Beer, right? Like he's not necessarily.
What did they get from Kyle Lewis?
Right? Exactly. So I think that you're having a conversation of a lot of expendable pieces that you can go get better elsewhere. And I think that can be in the bullpen. I think that can be, replacing Rojas, maybe upgrading over Rojas. So they've got an opportunity. Hell, maybe even getting a shortstop, right? Because you got a bridge to Jordan Lawler. And Ahmed and Perdomo might not be the people to do that. But we can talk about the Kansas City Royals now. You in?
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing I'll say too on the D-backs is I think this is a big year for them to kind of figure out which of those pieces they want to keep, which of those pieces they want to move out. And so only way you find out is through playing a lot of these guys. So I think this is going to be a good year for clarity and just kind of seeing what you've got.
As an ode to my affinity for high floor college bats, I believe in Pavin Smith. I think Pavin Smith can be a big league contributor. So I hope he goes and gets platoon reps elsewhere. Pavin Smith feels like a Washington National. He went to Virginia, right? He totally feels like a Nat.
I definitely see him getting moved. I could tell you that, especially with the emergence of Christian Walker.
Yeah. And with Seth Beer, like providing way more pop than Smith.
Yeah. All right. You ready to talk about Michael Massey and co?
I'm ready to talk about Michael Massey and co. Michael Massey, who was a revised first round pick in the 2019 redraft that we did on the call up. The Kansas City Royals are in a really interesting spot because not only has Kansas City had so many guys emerge over the last couple of years in the minor league system. MJ Melendez was the minor league home run king in 2021. Nick Pratto is a guy that has been a sought after prospect, but Vinny Pasquantino kind of like leapfrogged him in the
fully leapfrogged him.
Just how good he is. Bobby Witt Jr., we know that guy is a rocket ship, but even going to get Drew Waters for a competitive balance round pick. They've had guys emerge. They have so many flaws. So right now, if all the young guys click, they are a 500 team. Are they a World Series contender if everything goes according to plan with what they have in the organization right now? Absolutely not. So how do we get them on the path to becoming a legitimate contender? Let's find out. The Kansas City Royals have, I think, a bottom 6 payroll in all of Major League Baseball right now. They're checking in at around $45 million. The Royals are not going to spend. Like I was debating pulling up their Spot Track page at all. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter because they're going to stay low. They already are low. So we're not like bringing the financials into this. We're looking at small moves to make a team that is going to struggle and go through some growing pains, but provide flashes of young brilliance a little bit more young and exciting.
And that's kind of the other side of it, right? Is another team that just could kind of just use answers in 2023, which is a good and a bad thing, right? It's good because, I mean, they have a lot of different players who could step up, right? If Michael Massey is raking through the first half of the season and relatively speaking, like raking, let's say he's got a 110, 115 WRC plus, and we know the defense that he can play. Nicky Lopez becomes that much more expendable, right? Or vice versa. Even if Nicky Lopez is kind of back and performing again, then maybe they can think about something. I think the control of Massey makes Lopez expendable, which we're going to talk about. But I think the step back that Lopez took last year kind of handcuffed them a little bit. So if Lopez also hits a little bit more and Massey's kind of status quo, which is, an average hitter with good defense and younger and more controllable, they'll try to move Lopez. So there's some interesting spots that they're in. I'm surprised that Michael A. Taylor is still on this team. Now if they traded him last year, I think they could have got, maybe a mid-level prospect. Now I think they're going to get nothing but like a lottery ticket. So I was surprised about that. I loved the Drew Waters trade. I think it's still a dart. You're throwing a dart from pretty far away here, but Waters is super toolsy, was one time a top prospect, top 50, top 100 prospect in baseball, switch hitter, flies, has power, looks good in his big league little stint there, but also, struck out a ton. That's going to come with the territory. But given where this team was at, I love taking a flyer on an outfielder there because it wasn't just Waters. They also got a pitching prospect that's not bad, and CJ Alexander who can hit it a little bit and swing it a little bit in the minor leagues. So, they're making all the interesting, quiet moves, but they've got a lot to figure out, I think, in the outfield and especially the pitching department. They have a lot of middle infielders, but you got to figure out who are the middle infielders that we're riding with long term. And, we were talking about this in the chat the other day, and I think our guy, Christian Crespo, kind of said out of the blue, he's like, I forgot Adalberto Mondesi exists. And, it's actually true. I really was almost fully out of sight, out of mind with Mondesi. But at the end of the day, he's still 27. He's still on the team. He still has one more year of control, which is crazy. But he's had flashes of being fantastic, right? I mean, this guy has 133 career stolen bases in 358 games.
Okay, but he's played 50 games in the last 2 years.
Correct. So what are you doing with this guy? Is he just a bench player for you? Are you trying to start him and see what you get here? Because if he performs well, you can trade him. What is your plan with Adalberto Mondesi, with somebody like Nicky Lopez, Michael Massey? Like, I just want to know kind of who stays, who goes. And the problem is none of these guys are really valuable enough to move the needle. So this is where some sort of trade, I think, and it doesn't have to be now. Like this GM episode, I think, is also kind of spills into 2023's midseason, the deadline as well.
Yeah.
How can we acquire controllable pitching should be the number one question for the Royals moving forward here, because they got to fit the timeline too. And I think the offense is pretty close to coming together and being competitive in the next couple of years.
That's why I want to start with the lineup, because I think the lineup has a lot fewer questions than the starting rotation and the bullpen. And I think if we're going to make any moves, it's going to be to enhance the starting rotation, because we know how bad the Royals are at developing pitching over the last couple of years. And we'll start with the lineup, but just as a precursor, like the names that we're going to throw out that could be Kansas City Royals that we think would benefit the Royals by adding them into the fold are not sexy names at all, because not only do they not, significantly escalate the payroll, like they're never going to go out and sign that $30 million annually free agent, but they also don't have pieces that are worth mucho dinero. You know what I mean? Like
no.
they don't have the they do, I mean, shit, dude, like they don't have the Dalton Varsho that is expendable. So the lineup is pretty set, but again, there are a lot of questions that will be answered in 2023. But Sal Perez, 32 years old on opening day, he'll turn 33. He's still on the books. He's got a club option of 13.5 in 2026. So he's here for the overwhelming future, right? Like Sal Perez is kind of the catcher. MJ Melendez will get him off his feet. Vinny Pasquantino is the first baseman with Nick Prado backing him up. Second base right now, it's Nicky Lopez. You got Mike Massey there as well. Bobby Witt is the shortstop. Adalberto Mondesi / Hunter Dozier are the third baseman. And then the outfield from left to right, projected on opening day, is Drew Waters, Michael A. Taylor, Edward Olivares, with Nate Eaton as the fourth outfielder right now. And then you got Kyle Isbell's the fifth outfielder maybe. So this lineup is not good. Don't get it twisted, but there's some stuff to watch here. Like if you were to try and upgrade any spot, is it second base with Lopez and Massey? Is it one of the outfield spots with Olivares / Isbell?
Outfield, 100%. Because really, you're looking at the outfield right now. The only guy that's coming up through the pipeline in the next 2 years that I look at and I'm like, okay, this guy could be an everyday player is Tyler Gentry. And Tyler Gentry is far from a top prospect. You look at the numbers, what he put up in high A and double A last year, high floor guy that could be an above average regular. It's been so bad in the outfield that they moved Nick Lofton to center field, where he could be an option for them in the outfield. He struggled in triple. I think he could be a decent option for them too. But nobody that's coming up and you're like, okay, this guy's going to make an impact, right? And again, that's why I like the Drew Waters flyer, and we'll see how he does. I still think Kyle Isbell can be a decent outfielder. He's probably more of a fourth outfielder, but a fantastic defender in both corners, pretty solid in center, has a little bit of juice. He had a really nice debut in 2021 and then struggled pretty mightily in 2022. So we'll see what he does this year. And I think he's going to get an opportunity to get a lot of ABs. And I think he's going to cut into some of, Michael A. Taylor's playing time and Edward Alvarez as well, just so they can see what they have there with him. But you got to be looking for an outfielder, I think. When you're looking at this team in a year or two from now, Michael A. Taylor is a free agent who isn't great, but is probably one of your most consistent outfielders. At least he's a great defender, and you know what you're going to get at least close to league average offense from him, around a 90 to 95 WRC+. Outfield's the biggest spot because when Michael A. Taylor is gone, you almost don't even know how you're going to fill it out. How do you fill out that outfield? I don't even know. You're praying Tyler Gentry, and then Lord knows.
Yeah, I mean, like you and I both like Kyle Isbell because he's dynamic, but Kyle Isbell's like not an opening day center fielder at this point. And he could change that narrative about him
maybe next year,
2023.
Yeah,
but it's hard to see that world. And he's already 26 years old. He's going to be 26 on opening day. Eaton is 26 on opening day as well. So yeah, they got to upgrade. I don't think they have to address that this year though, because
that was going to be my question.
Guys.
That was going to be my question, because I would say, how much urgency really is there? Because you can go into this year, nothing that you're going to do in the next couple months or more is going to really change anything for this season.
No,
so any move you're making is in the best interest of long-term control.
Right.
And if they can address the pitching, which I think is harder, but if there's a trade opportunity to address the pitching, I feel like you can answer the outfield, in free agency. And that could be the one spot that they spend, right? Because we're talking about control. And we always do this, right? Where we go through the lineup. Who are the locks? MJ Melendez, lock. And he's going to play outfield. He's going to play pretty much anywhere except for catcher when Salvi's catching. And then when Salvi's DHing, he'll catch. Guess what? Salvi's not here forever, a couple more years, and then MJ is going to probably take the reins at catcher.
Yeah,
so
MJ's like already well into arbitration when that happens.
Which is crazy. But I think they're going to start to phase Salvi out of the catcher's role a little bit this year, which we'll see. Bobby Witt lock, obviously Salvi lock, Vinny Pasquantino's a lock. That's pretty much it, right? Those are the only locks as we move forward for the next, beyond this coming season. I don't know if I could point at anybody and say this guy is a guarantee to, be in the lineup in 2024 and beyond. So I think that kind of tells you where they're at.
Can I ask
but what do you think is easier to acquire? Is it signing the pitching, or is it signing the outfield? I think trying to trade for controllable pitching and then signing outfield pieces here and there is the way to go.
I think that's the right way to do it. Can I ask you one question before we move to the pitching?
Yep.
Where does Nick Pratto fit in to the 2023 Kansas City Royals?
I don't really know. That's the craziest part, because your DH spot is clogged. Nick Pratto's a great deal of Nick Pratto's value comes from the glove. If you want to move Vinny to the DH spot, you can. But guess what? You got Salvi there and MJ kind of interchanging. And when MJ is catching, you need to have Salvi in the DH spot. So for me, it's trade chip. The problem is, and this is always the big struggle with teams, is you call a guy up and he doesn't do great. You just slash his trade value a little bit. Nick Pratto went from consensus top 100 prospect to an afterthought to some. And that doesn't mean his career's doomed. It just kind of shows you like where things are at now. He got lapped at his own position, in his own org. If you're a first baseman and you get leapfrogged in the pecking order, if you're a first base prospect, that's not good, right? And so when you are not the best first base prospect on your own team, I know Vinny graduated, but the point kind of stands. It diminishes your value a lot. So I think they're going to hold on to Pratto for the year. I think he starts in triple. And if he puts up big numbers, which he should in Omaha, but he honestly took his struggles over to AAA too. if he can bounce back, show some good numbers, I think that he could easily be one of their better trade chips, given that the system's not great. And Prado still does have prospect pedigree, but last year was extremely disappointing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, man. I mean, yes, he had a 120 WRC plus in Omaha in 82 games, but that's because he walked all the time. He had a 16% walk rate, but he struck out 31% of the time. He had 17 bombs in 82 games, but it's pretty easy to hit homers at Werner Park in Omaha.
No, it's definitely concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning. So the swing and miss is there. It actually got worse. Like the last time he had a K rate over 30%, he struck out 35% of the time in high A as a 20-year-old in 2019. That was pre-COVID. So this post-COVID was the worst swing and miss season he's had in his career. And you can't feel great about that. You know what I mean? Like he played 49 games at the Royals at the major league level. He had a 36% K rate.
No, that's what I'm saying. He really hurt his value.
Hurt his value a lot. So are you going buy low pitcher for buy low hitter? Like it's hard to fathom that. So we'll talk about the buy low pitching options, but just running through, I mean, you want to get sad about the Kansas City Royals here. We talked about, everything that's positive about this lineup and the locks that you see in 24 and beyond. The starting rotation right now, Jordan Lyles, who they just signed to a free agent deal, Brady Singer, who's legitimately good, like we talked about, Ryan Yarborough to a 1-year deal, Brad Keller and Daniel Lynch with Chris Bubich waiting in the wings. This is a terrible rotation.
Yeah. And real quick too, I want to wrap the bow on the and tie the bow on the outfield situation. There's probably 4 free agents next year that all scream Kansas City Royals to me. Listen to this group and tell me you couldn't envision almost any of these guys being a Kansas City Royals except for 1 or 2. This is 2024 free agents: Mark Canha, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Max Kepler, Manny Margot, Tyler O'Neill, no way, Victor Robles, Eddie Rosario, Anthony Santander, Juan Soto, Alex Verdugo. So I could see their big splash being Alex Verdugo, but I could also see a Mark Canha to bridge as they try to figure out, the long-term options there. Max Kepler seems like a great fit out there. I could even see Margot out there, but they can finally, like, 2 of those guys or one of those guys is definitely going to help them in the outfield, probably better than anything they're going to trade for. On the pitching side, dude, I think they're just taking one more year and praying that one of Daniel Lynch, Brad Keller, or even Jackson Kowar make the leap next year, which the only guy that I'm holding out a little bit of hope for is Lynch. Lynch has always been the guy I've liked the most out of this group outside of Brady Singer. And it was a tough year for him, but I wouldn't say it was a flat out disaster. The 5.13 ERA, not great, but he punched out 122, walked 52. He's kind of missing that third pitch to get righties out, but he's 26, just turned 26, first round pedigree, has had some really good stretches in the minors. The walk speed going down was good for him. That's the one guy that I'm like kind of waiting to see how he does. But other than that, dude, like this is another one where you look at the farm system. Asa Lacy's a disaster. You look at some of the other guys that might be coming up through the pipeline. I love Ben Kudrna, but he's 19. Frank Mazzucato, exciting, but struggled mightily and also is far as hell away. He's 19. Yeah. They don't really have any pitching prospects that you can say, hey, this guy's knocking on the door and ready to go. I mean, we get to the back end of their top 10 or top 20 prospects, and the guys that are closest are it's a curve of like the lower level guys, highest upside, and then the upper level guys are all struggling.
Austin Cox, right?
Yeah, they're all struggling too. Jonathan Bolin, 6 ERA. Asa Lacy, disaster. Like it's TJ Sakema, who they traded for, disaster. It's rough. It's really, really rough. The only other arm I still am holding out hope for at the big league level, and I think he's a reliever though, is Alec Marsh. So they're in a weird spot, and they've got to figure things out. I will say one underrated move that they made that I think could be an outfield option for them, that just before I forget, is Samad Taylor. I think Samad Taylor could be an interesting option for them if he can hit enough. I liked when they picked him up. I thought that was a sneaky move. That's a guy that could end up being an outfield option for them. He's just been pretty consistent hitter. I think 759 OPS his entire minor league career, steals bags, can mix in 10, 12 home runs, but he's just a good ball player, versatile, almost like a Whit Merrifield light, in terms of can play infield, can play outfield. That's a guy that I'm actually holding out hope for. But other than that, yeah, it's rough. So on the pitching side, I would put my eyes on like an Andrew Hoffman, who also came over in that trade. But guess what happened? He comes over, he gets to Double-A with the Royals, 6.64 ERA, 2.36 in high A before that. So it's like even the guys that I kind of liked and tried to talk myself into earlier in the season have all struggled. Beck Way might be the best bet for this system in the next year now, which is crazy. He came over from the Yankees. So they're just in a really, really weird spot.
No, I've tried to talk myself into Coar for the last couple of years, but Jackson Coar, I mean, dude, like the walk numbers ballooned, the strikeout numbers dissipated in more innings at the minor league level. I mean, he was walking like 5 guys per 9 at the minor league level. And when he would get up to the major leagues, he had 7 relief appearances, I want to say, and he was walking like 6.5 guys per 9. I think the only hope of generating some momentum on the mound in-house is from this new president of baseball operations, J.J. Piccolo. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, Piccolo. He took over after Dayton Moore was let go. He was already the GM as of September 2021, but Dayton Moore was let go this past September, and Piccolo he takes over as the president of baseball operations. So there has to be a change in development on the mound in-house, or you have to go try and get other guys. And I want to talk about those other guys now because I'm trying to think around the league, controllable pitching. You mentioned, hey, they could be a trade partner with the Miami Marlins. Like you could move one of these outfielders and you could go get pitching, but we have the Pablo Lopez and Trevor Rogers conversation about the Marlins. We're having the conversation about some different starters with the Marlins when it comes to the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's a level of, the Marlins are trying to figure out what they want to do in terms of what they want to get, right? Like, and the Marlins are pretty hell-bent on getting big league pieces. And Craig Mish has said that publicly. I know he's talked about how the Marlins, they don't want prospects right now. They're not interested in that. And so that's what makes these teams a tough match. What's interesting though is I think the Marlins have, 2 different options here, right? You trade a Trevor Rogers, you're looking for an impact big league bat, right? You trade a Pablo Lopez, you're looking for an impact big league bat. But the problem is nobody that's trading for 2 years of control of Pablo Lopez is going to trade an impact big league bat. They're going to try to trade you prospects, right? So Trevor Rogers is that one guy that you're trying to trade to teams that, are trading control for control. But the problem is with that is the Marlins can't trade Trevor Rogers to the Royals because the Royals don't really have anything that can match it. The only way that trade would work is if there's a MJ Melendez involved or Vinny Pasquantino, which neither of them are going anywhere. So I think you got to look at the second tier for the Marlins, which is Braxton Garrett. And I think the Marlins have been willing to talk about him in certain spots, but it's got to that, like, if it's a second tier player, then maybe they can, make a second tier trade. And, for the Marlins, that's where I don't know if they can justify it even with Braxton Garrett, because even if he's a low 4 ERA guy, with the years of control he has, he's still pretty valuable. You're not just dumping him to dump him. It's not like an Ian Anderson who we're going to talk about, right? So it's a tough spot for the Fish because you want to make a move. And if you don't want to part with one of your studs in Trevor Rogers, like you're not going to trade just to trade. A Braxton Garrett deal is probably the most likely match with the Royals, but what do the Royals have to offer? I think Michael A. Taylor would be, a great option for the Marlins, but Michael A. Taylor has very little trade value at this point, right? He has 1 year of control. And it's after that, he's a free agent and he's a hometown kid. He's from Fort Lauderdale. He would help the Marlins in center field without a doubt. He's a phenomenal defender out there. And I think even if he gives you a 90 WRC plus, that's an upgrade from what they were getting out there. But like, you're not trading Braxton Garrett for Michael A. Taylor. So how do you find a trade? Like, how do you put one together if you're the Royals? That's the question. The Marlins, do they have an interest in Nick Pratto? Probably not. He's not that far off from what Lewin Diaz was for them. Elite defender, big power, walks a lot. Is he going to hit enough at the big league level? Lewin Diaz put up great numbers in AAA. So it would kind of be redundant to DFA Lewin, who has the poor guy's been DFA'd 8 times now.
Yeah.
And then go get a Nick Pratto in a trade for one of your controllable starters. That seems like the epitome of making a trade just to make it. So how do the Royals put together a package, I think, is the big question. And that's the hardest part.
Yes, and that's why I think they have to be very strategic with who they go after. And I think they have to try and buy guys whose stock will never be lower. And that's why my eyes go to Atlanta, and Ian Anderson. Will throw out Bryce Elder in there as well, because Bryce Elder has been phased out, and Elder is cut from the Kyle Muller cloth, where Kyle Muller is going to Oakland. Muller will throw 150 innings this year. He's durable as shit. He's a pitchability guy. Like there's a non-zero chance that Kyle Muller can put together a 4 ERA across 180 innings this year. And
he might be their best pitcher this year.
Yeah, and that's what young teams with minimal to no pitching, like Oakland has no pitching, Kansas City has next to no pitching, aside from Brady Singer. That's what those teams need. They need guys that, are better than the sacrificial lamb that Washington is running out with Patrick Corbin and Yohan Adon. So you go to Atlanta and you think about their pitching surplus and you try and give them some offensive help. Right now, Atlanta is running out Fried, Kyle Wright, Charlie Morton, Spencer Strider, Mike Soroka. That's excellent. And then you go to the depth and you've got Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder, Colby Allard, Darius Vines. I mean, Jared Schuster is not far away, and Schuster's the best of the bunch. So Anderson should be available. Elder should be available. Let's put something together for Ian Anderson.
I'm struggling, man.
Yeah.
It's
Ian
hard.
Anderson had a 5 flat ERA in 111 innings. Walked 54 guys in 111 innings. That is not Ian Anderson at all.
Yeah, and I think he needs to change the scenery. It's just like, that's the sceneries might be getting worse when it comes to helping you figure out whatever's going on the pitching side of things if you're going to Kansas City. But again, it's a new regime there. So you have to hope that they're able to put something together and help them out here. Here's my struggle. What would the Braves realistically want? What would the Braves want from this Royals team for an Ian Anderson? I feel like for them, they're looking at Ian Anderson as maybe a trade chip. If he's throwing well in triple, or he's making some spot starts and, regains even 10% of his trade value, they're going to probably want to make a move for him or with him at some point during the season. And I think that this trade with the Royals could come during the season, like a trade period with them, because I think if Michael A. Taylor is swinging it, that's a guy that more teams might start calling on. If Mondesi looks healthy, that's a player that more teams might even just start taking a flyer on. Same with Nicky Lopez, as we mentioned earlier. So looking at the Braves, right, they're going to play Grissom at short. And so like if you acquire somebody, you don't want that player to be an everyday guy because you want to get Grissom reps there, but you want kind of a backup plan in case Grissom struggles. But then on that same side of things, is anybody that isn't an everyday shortstop type, is he going to be able to net you even an Ian Anderson? And that's the question. Because I look at the Braves, they need two things. They need an outfielder, like a left fielder, because it's Eddie Rosario / Marcelo Zuna, I guess, which is ridiculous. And then that's really it. They need a shortstop. So what could the Royals put together to go get an Ian Anderson? And is it worth it for them to part with a prospect or two to do so? Because the Braves could be interested in, of course, just juicing up the farm system a little bit and just kind of dumping Ian Anderson for a change of scenery type move. It'll free up a spot on the 40-man for them too, if they do dump him for prospects. But is that worth it for the Royals, who don't want to diminish the farm, but with that same notion, I don't know if there's an arm in the upper that's pitched above high A in this entire system that I like more than Ian Anderson upside wise. It's not even close, honestly. Like I think Ian Anderson, if you could still rate him as a prospect, I'd put him above almost every single guy not named Ben Kudrna. And that's the struggle of where they're at right now. Maybe a change of scenery for change of scenery. You ship Asa Lacy out.
So I was thinking, how can Atlanta enhance their big league roster this year in exchange for Ian Anderson, right? Because this lineup, yeah, obviously they've got they just opened a fucking 8-year window with all these pre-arb deals. So they're fine. Like they're going to be really good for a really long time. But how can you help them win right away? I don't think Atlanta is looking to bolster their farm. I don't think they're willing to add an Asa Lacy because they frankly don't need Asa Lacy. They already have a pitching surplus. They're trading from that pitching surplus. The starting lineup, like you mentioned, is set. Now, what I will say is this lineup is very right-handed. Ozzie Albies is not a good lefty bat as a switch hitter. And the lefties that you got right now are Olsen and Harris, locks, and then Eddie Rosario and Sam Hilliard is on the bench right now. So how can you get a little bit more left-handed? How can you hedge this righty-heavy lineup? And, Lopez could go if they want to add a shortstop, but if you pair Nicky Lopez with one of these two left-handed bats, I think it might be enough to get Ian Anderson done, and that is buying low on Prado, who has experience in the corners, or Kyle Isbell, who could be that speedy, dynamic fourth outfielder, maybe even fifth outfielder if they want to keep Hilliard or Jordan Luplow ahead of Isbell in the pecking order. So I'm going to pitch Nicky Lopez and Nick Prado for Ian Anderson.
It's interesting because the Braves did just claim Lewin Diaz, and I think they did because they were interested in like a depth first base piece, and Prado, and they DFA'd him afterwards. So it seems like they have an interest for a left-handed hitting first baseman. They put a waiver claim in on him. The only reason that they DFA'd him is because they had to make room for another player. So to me, that's a little bit of a tell that maybe they have some interest in a left-handed hitting first baseman who can pick it a little bit.
And as of right now, their backup first baseman, Matt Olson, plays all the time. He had damn near 700 plate appearances this year. Like, you are hoping that he puts together the Freddie Freeman type season where he plays 162. Matt Olson will, if he's healthy, he'll play 162. So you're looking for a contingency plan. And as of right now, it's Luplow at first. But I think Prado would be great because he can play left, he can play right, but obviously he's a Gold Glove caliber first baseman.
Well, and they can stick him in AAA, work with him. And again, this is an org that really has helped their guys put it together offensively. So again, this is like change of scenery for change of scenery. My only question for you with Nicky Lopez is he better than Orlando Arcia? No. I think yes. I think for them.
I think no, actually.
So then why are you making the trade?
Because I don't know.
I think he is though, because hear me out. What like Arcia is a better hitter, obviously. Nicky Lopez is a pretty dreadful hitter. But you're getting Nicky Lopez as an insurance policy at shortstop, and really as a glove that you can move all over the diamond. He's a heck of a defender. I mean, he put up Nicky Lopez. It's going to be one of the best trivia questions ever. Nicky Lopez put up a 5.9 F4 season last year, or 2021. That's insane. Last year 1.2, but he's playing a lot of second. He's much better defender at short, which is weird. I just if I'm the Braves, I'm declining the shit out of that.
Damn. Okay. How about that for Elder?
How much different are they in value at this point, Ian Anderson and Bryce Elder?
I think Anderson probably has more value because of what he's done at the big league level, right? Like Ian Anderson is this guy is already a postseason stud. You know what I mean? He's 24 years old. And he's a postseason stud.
Yeah.
So I feel like that enhances his value, at least to the naked eye. I'm not sure how the Braves view those two, but I feel like if you were to ask me who has the greater value, it's Anderson, and it's by a margin that you can see. It's not by the thinnest of margins. How about who's more valuable, Nicky Lopez or Mondesi?
Lopez.
But
honestly, dude, I'm looking at Arcia. Looking at Arcia. I'm like, yeah, he had that if it weren't for the 2 weeks he had last year.
Oh, he was great for those 2 weeks.
That's it though. And you look at the rest of his career, he's been pretty terrible aside from 2017. That is the one good season he had in Milwaukee. The Braves might see Lopez as an upgrade. And again, as a left-handed bat, he might be an upgrade for them realistically. So I guess there's a chance. I would do it for Elder, not Anderson, though.
Okay. So we'll call it Elder. There's another guy in Milwaukee that I want to mention, actually.
And is that too much? No, like Prado. What is the value of a Nick Prado at this point?
I don't know. Should we go to the trade machine?
No. The trade machine that I think has Nick Fortes at like the same value as I think Nick Fortes at like an 18 something value, which is
No way.
nuts. I
Yeah.
swear. Because of his WAR per like game at this point. He's like weirdly only hitting the majors.
The PER legend, who's the PER player efficiency rating legend in the NBA? Isn't Taco Fall like a PER legend?
I honestly don't know. I love the guys that break the system though.
Yeah.
I would say Nicky Lopez. Like Prado's a lot like Prado. I just don't know if they want to sell low on him, but maybe they got to. If you're getting a starting pitcher like Elder, maybe it's worth it. I just feel like Nicky Lopez might
get it done for Elder.
I don't want to trade Isbell from them at all. That's like one of my only outfielders for 2024.
Lopez and Eaton, Nate Eaton.
Ugh.
All right, Lopez and Prado for Elder.
Yeah, just call it that. And throw in a mid-level prospect from the Braves, and we'll call it a day.
Shit. Okay. Another guy that could just immediately make it a more enjoyable watch is Adrian Hauser, who has been phased out of the Brewers starting rotation. Because as of right now, the five are Burns, Woodruff, Lauer, Peralta, Ashby. Like that is very much so set in stone. And then in terms of guys that are really close, starting pitching wise in that system, Ethan Small, Jansen Junk, Robert Gasser is really close and really good. Tobias Myers is going to be a non-roster invitee for them. Like they have a lot of options. I mean, hell, dude, even a Caleb Bosley, who's 29 years old, he was really good in AAA last year. So, you know, you're looking at a pitching surplus again in Milwaukee. And we've heard the rumors, Xavier Scruggs said on this show that he thinks that the Brewers are going to move Corbin Burns. They could absolutely move one of those starting pitchers, but Hauser he had a 4.70 ERA in 102 innings last year. This is another buy low guy, but we know that Hauser, who's going to be 30 on opening day, Hauser is a guy that rolls ground balls when he's right. He had a 59% ground ball rate in 142 innings in 21. I think this could be a guy that makes the Royals rotation better and a bit more veteran right away.
Yeah, it's definitely a move that helps a lot. Definitely helps them a lot, and he's gonna be right now kind of like that innings eater, like random guy you throw out there for the Brewers, pretty much like mop up duty at this point. So I don't think it would require much. It's just more like what would the Brewers need? I think the Brewers are a team that would absolutely have interest in Nick Prado.
Yeah.
They've got Rowdy Tellez, they've got John Singleton. Right. I think, or did Singleton sign elsewhere at this point? I don't even remember.
No, I think Singleton's there. He was added to the 40-man.
Yeah. Singleton's there. But, that's almost exactly the landing spot I would love to see for Prado. I think Tellez is fine. But I think Prado, his bat could play up there. We know what the glove can do there. And Tellez hit 219 last year. So it's not like it's that much of a role to fill in a year from now. And the Brewers prospects have done really well offensively. That's one where I would almost want to aim higher than Hauser, but I don't see them parting with really anybody else on the pitching side as I'm looking through like their entire. I mean, Ethan Small. Do you see them parting with Ethan Small?
No, because I feel like they'd be selling low on Small.
Yeah, they would. They would definitely be selling low on Ethan Small. Just again, like if I'm parting with him with Prado,
you need more than Hauser.
Yeah, Hauser's like just kind of a whatever filler. I think Small, like, yeah, they're kind of selling low, but at the same time, maybe they're not. Like he walked 5 per 9 in triple last year. Struggled in 6 innings at the big league level for whatever that's worth.
I would take Hauser and Ethan Small for Prado.
Yeah. Hauser, Ethan Small, Prado. I think it would have to be like Ethan Small for Prado straight up.
So sad, dude.
Ethan Small for Prado. I'm in.
Ethan Small for Prado or Hauser and Small for Prado?
I don't think Hauser. No, it's too much.
How about Prado and a high A bat for Hauser and Small?
Here's the thing, though. Now, if you're the Brewers, all of a sudden now your pitching is much thinner. For what? Just for Nick Prado and a high A player?
This is so I can't believe we're opening the new year like this. This is going to be such a shitty year if we're talking about this on January 2.
Small for Prado. Done deal.
Done. Signed, sealed, delivered. So gross. All right. That's the Royals. Like, they didn't get much better. I feel like we're going to have so many questions answered, though, in the first couple months at 23.
Yeah. Why do we do one on the Royals?
We thought it was a good idea last night. Maybe we were still reeling from New Year's Eve. I have no idea.
I was still reeling. I mean, look, we wanted to do every team, and this is a team that's far from done. And I think if anything, we've properly highlighted what the fuck they have to figure out. Like, that's the thing. I don't think, like, everyone loves to talk about the Royals as like this team that has a really young core and is exciting and all that stuff. Like, yeah, sure. Dude, they still got a lot of shit to figure out. Like, so I hope that this episode helps illustrate that. Because
within this episode, all my New Year's resolutions have failed already.
what were they?
I don't know. Just not talk about the Royals or something. I failed.
Like, but here's the thing, man. Like, this is a team that people are trying to put like in the same breath as some of the other young, exciting ball clubs, and like, they're not. And I don't know if I realized how bad it was until we did this fucking episode.
Until they do more, they are not here. But they have to do more.
But here's the problem: we were barely able to do anything. How do you do more?
Flip expiring players who have strong starts to 23.
You know what the real answer is to me, and they just won't do it, is trade Salvador Perez.
They won't do it. No shot.
Stupid. Trade him.
Shit.
He's one of their only valuable trade assets.
You know what? Go sign Hosmer to be the bench coach. Yeah. Special advisor. It's an absolute lock. If I had to set odds, it'd be like minus 100,000 on Eric Hosmer to be a special advisor to the GM when his playing career is over in Kansas.
So basically, we just said, let's run it back with the same team, but we added either Bryce Elder or
Ethan Small. That's so sad.
But honestly, again, we just spent an hour explaining how tied the Royals' hands are behind their back with what they need to do here. And really, the only way to do it is just see how things go this year. Hope some guys emerge and try to get creative. That's why I like the Drew Waters move, and I like the Samad Taylor pickup, and that's why they're kind of working between the margins here. So we'll see what else they can kind of pull off. But I think it's very clear the Royals are not in the best of positions, even with this, young trio of bats with Melendez, Witt, and Vinny Pasquantino. It's still pretty rough.
Content's content, man. We put out content. We got an hour of stuff. If you want to listen to something that is much more loaded, I would recommend going to the call up and listening to the 2019 redraft. That was so much fun. And that's a loaded draft already with established major league guys and some of the top prospects in baseball already. So that's the call up. Great stuff on the site as always. It's going to be a fun year for the Just Baseball Show, man. Me and Peter will be back to talk to you guys tomorrow.